It is time for my August reading wrap-up. Let me go through the 9 books that I completed in the month before we stampede towards spooky season. Hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Sinead and this is my spooky corner of YouTube, where I talk about the spooky books that I've read, the spooky films that I've watched, and the spooky things that I occasionally get up to, mostly involving crows and graveyards and, well, there's some upsetting stuff. At the time of recording, we have tripped into September. The Burr months are here. Autumn is upon us. Technically, it's not for a few weeks, but that's not going to stop us spooky people. Can we also have a moment to admire this little sculpture that my husband got me for my birthday? It's a crow on a skull and some books. But first I want to share all of the books that I read in the height of summer, and there are some absolute smashers in here, and quite a few arcs that will be coming out in a matter of days. I finished 9 books in total, which makes this one of my best months of the year. I think I had another month when I finished 9. There was one DNF in there, and that one's a little bit disappointing. I might still come back to it. But yeah, we had slashers, I had straight up thrillers, I had supernatural, horror, literary fiction, all of it made for a very interesting stew. It's not one that I would possibly serve to friends, I mean, considering the subject matter of some of the books I read. But before I get into the books, I need to jump in here with a quick word from this video's sponsor, Bellesa. Who are Bellesa? They make very good things. You guys know I read a lot of gothic fiction. I do read a lot of stories involving witchcraft, a female rage, of good for her energy. There are plenty of books out there inspired by the too many cases throughout history where women's sexuality, female desire, the big O itself, was turned into something monstrous and sinister, which is why female repression shows up in a lot of horror books, because repressing a woman's sexual desires is monstrous. So we must learn from our books to make sure that history does not repeat itself in that respect. This is why this video is sponsored by my friends at Bellesa, a by-women company that is completely focused on all things sexual wellness. Their mission is to empower everyone to embrace, explore, and celebrate sexuality. And even better, Bellesa has created a special giveaway for me, for you guys. They are literally sending out a free vibrator or a free gift card to anyone who signs up to the giveaway that is linked in this video's description. Bellesa has an incredible range of products. They are diverse, they are discreet, they are sophisticated, and they are there to meet whatever needs you have. The Pebble, this is literally pleasure in the palm of your hand. Air Vibe, going to take care of all the spots on your list. Also, this, like many of the other products, is waterproof. The Rose, for your rose. Thump. Yes, it's got a pretty punchy name, and it packs a punch, this one. You can check out all the information about Bellesa, enter the giveaway, find out about these products via the link in my video description. Sexual expression and exploration is a wonderful thing to do at any stage of your life. I hope you have fun exploring with Bellesa. I started out on a high in August by reading a new slasher book. This was Breathe In, Bleed Out by Brian McCauley. I read an advanced copy. This book is published on the 2nd of September, so it should probably be available by the time you're watching this video. Breathe In, Bleed Out is predominantly the story of Hannah, a young woman who at the beginning of the book has experienced a tragic loss. We understand that she lost her partner in tragic circumstances. We don't know the full details, but she is still reeling from the aftermath of this event. She is trying to get her life back together, but she's not doing a terribly good job. But then her friends rally around her and tell her about a new restorative retreat out at Joshua Tree. Beautiful place out in the desert that is focused on holistic healing, getting back to nature, cutting off technology. They should all go and chill out there. And yeah, that sounds too good to be true, and probably it is. Hannah agrees and they make their way to the retreat. They meet the guru who is in charge of their healing, a very kind of high ick factor, but seemingly quite perceptive man, and his assistant who is quietly strange. But they haven't been at the retreat long before terrible things start to happen around them. Maybe they're not alone in the desert, and maybe some of the rumors about the land, about legends of past killings and murderers on the loose in the desert might be true, and they might be coming for the group. This book gave me everything I was looking for in a summer slasher. It has shot up there with one of my favorite slasher books of all time. I just loved the vibes of it. It is gory, it is creative, it is over the top, it is cliched in all the best ways with all the tropes that you're expecting. I also really like the structure of the story. We get little bits of flashback from Hannah about what happened to her partner with this loss, this tragic incident at the beginning. We've also got different perspectives from people through the story, as if, you know, if it was a slasher film, the camera cutting to them and getting their internal monologue just before dreadful things start happening. And the story does a good job of throwing you in different directions, so you're never really sure who could be behind what is happening at the retreat, what is really going on. Is this something supernatural? Is this something grounded in reality? It just ticked all the boxes for me. I think it had, the ending was good. I could have gone even more over the top personally. So this ended up being a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It may bump up to a 5-star for pure entertainment factor. This being a slasher, of course you need to suspend your disbelief. You need to go in here knowing that this is a slasher. It's going to be over the top. And if you do that, you're going to have a wild ride. Next was an audio and read, mainly audio though, of a book that's been on my list for a little while. It was A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher I love as an author. I've read many of their works, and this one was recommended to me as a good Southern Gothic. A House with Good Bones is a story of a young woman, Sam, who is going to visit her mother in North Carolina, in her mother's home that's also used to be owned by her grandmother. Now, Sam had had a bit of a strained relationship with the grandmother. The grandmother, we understand, wasn't particularly nice, but she has a very close relationship with her mum. But when she arrives at the house, she finds her mum is still in good form, but is displaying strange tendencies around the house. She's using a lot of the grandmother's goods and old pictures that are quite disturbing and little things. She seems to be on edge a lot. It's not helped by the fact that the house is now apparently being stalked by vultures outside. I know vultures are a common thing in some parts of America. To anyone living in England, you're like, I mean, I love a vulture, obviously. I would be delighted with that, but a creepy image nonetheless. As Sam stays in the house, she starts to notice unnatural, uncanny things happening. Is the house haunted? Is the spirit of the grandmother lingering? But what really was going on with the grandmother? What was going on in the house? The grandmother alluded to strange rituals, fairy stories, folk tales that when Sam was a child thought was perfectly innocent, if a little bit bloody creepy, but now is starting to think, was she trying to tell her something? Is there more to this household than she maybe understood as a kid? I personally don't think you'll ever have a bad time with a T. Kingfisher book, because T. Kingfisher writes with this combination of wit, of great creativity. They're very good at world building. Kingfisher always writes very good main characters because you do get the sense of their fear in the scary moments, but it feels very realistic because there's humor in there as well, and it's very much them going, no, absolutely fuck that, I'm not doing that. What the hell is going on? This story had great creepy images in it, and it did have that Southern Gothic feel. It had a very interesting story. I will say I think some of the plot lines of the story got a bit lost. It wasn't quite the full bombastic story I was hoping for when I started it, but it was still very enjoyable. And it's difficult to go into detail about what I didn't love about the book because it would be giving away too much of the plot. Suffice it to say, there are various plot lines weaving through the story, and I'm not sure all of them were fully realized, but the ones that worked really did. And you do have some very creepy what the WTF moments in the story that were really enjoyable. In terms of Southern Gothic, I would say that this is a lighter shade of it, because I often think Southern Gothic goes very dark to counteract the bright sunlight and the heat often that's associated with the Southern Gothic books that I've read, and there's not a huge mountain there. So I think it's a lighter take on it. It's not terribly dark, but it's got some darkness to it, and that delivers. As I said, I don't think you'll ever have a bad time with a T. Kingfisher story because they are creative, they are fun, and there is great world building in there as well. Whether you are more towards the fairy tale retellings that she does, or whether you prefer the horror books that are more grounded in reality, you will find a T. Kingfisher book to fall in love with. Next up, I went full fairy tale, gothic fairy tale, with Bitterthorn by Kat Dunn. I'd heard about Bitterthorn over the last couple of years, but then having read Hungerstone by Kat Dunn this year, and it was one of my favourite books so far of the year, I was determined, right, I need to go back and read Bitterthorn, her first novel. Bitterthorn is a dark fairy tale, a sapphic love story, a gothic romance, all of the above, in a beautiful, sumptuous package that I mostly loved. I listened to the audiobook of Bitterthorn, and it's a great audiobook as well. Bitterthorn is the story of Mina, the daughter of the Duke of the Kingdom of Blumwald. This is apparently inspired by Germany in the late 1800s, so we're not talking sort of full medieval. It's got some modern references to it. But Mina, as the daughter of the Duke, she has got a lot of responsibility on her shoulders to try and live up to her father's expectations. She has lost her mother, and the Duke has a new wife, so yes, a slightly nasty stepmother is in the picture. But Blumwald is also tainted by a curse over the land, a curse laid on by the witch. The witch, this figure who lives out in the wilderness and demands that every 50 years she is able to choose a companion from the community to come with her, and that person is never seen again. This curse and this ritual of taking a companion for the witch has been going on for centuries, and it's always been men who have been taken. But then the time comes for the next companion to be chosen, and the fates align that it is Mina who offers herself up as the new companion for the witch. Mina ends up being whisked away to the witch's castle. The witch, who is this incredibly quiet, imposing, charismatic figure, but takes her away to the wilderness, but pretty much ignores her. And Mina has to find her way in the castle, around the servants, around the people who whisper and really don't share information with her at all about what it is the witch wants from the companions, what she's expected to do, and why this curse lingers over the land. Bitterthorn is heavily inspired by the old fairy tales, and the world that Kat Dunn creates in this book is absolutely gorgeous. I fell in love with the world building here, with the scenery, with the setting. She captured that sense of old world fairy tales in this, sort of modern-ish setting, it being in the late 1800s. And the complexities of the Duke's castle, of Mina trying to fit in with the court, and her being quite independent, and her wanting to have her own way in the world, as we want with all of our FMCs. And then the world of the witch who is just incredibly compelling and beautiful, yet stark and yet harsh. You've got this fairy tale world, and you've got the gothic-like characters, the witch who is so reminiscent of the likes of Mr. Rochester and so forth, and Mina is kind of your Jane Eyre character. It works really, really well. The story as it unfolds is inspired by different fairy tales that you may be familiar with. I won't go into it because I don't want to spoil anything, but it is this wonderfully gothic fairy tale story. I do think that the storyline, the fairy tale, the magic in it was strong. The romance worked. It did get a little bit repetitive for me. It felt just like a shade off being fully realized. It relied a little bit too heavily on that gothic trope, the Mr. Rochester, the brooding figure that the young woman is fascinated with. And in this situation, it is a sapphic love affair that is compelling, that is hot, and it is, your heart flutters. I just sort of feel like a little bit more could have been done with those characters, and certainly that was what happened in Hungerstone, I think, in Kat Dunn. So maybe this was just an evolution of the writer. This is one of their earlier books. I may be taking liberties or making assumptions there. So that was the only thing with Bitterthorn, is that I wanted those characters a little bit more rounded as the further we went into the book. But really, for those gothic fairy tale vibes, this is one of the best settings that I have read, and I loved it for that. I could eat it up again and again and again. And I do think that the storyline and the inspiration of the old fairy tales was very well realized in this. So Bitterthorn, if you like your gothic romance and you like your fairy tales and you like kind of hot witchy sapphics, yeah, read it. I'll throw in here that I was particularly fond of Bitterthorn because of that world building was so good. Having dabbled in romantasy, the fantasy romance books that are out and about, and when some of these romance books are labeled as gothic, I always get disappointed because I never feel like the world building is enough to justify it as gothic. They put in a castle, they put in a bit of peril and some tropes in there, but it's never really realized the way I would love it to be, whereas I think Bitterthorn really lent into the gothic and the fairy tale world building so well. So it gets big points from me from that. As ever, if anyone else has got recommendations of those gothic fairy tale romances that you think worked, let me know. You hit me up. Next up, I read and listened to a very popular book, a literary horror story. It is technically classed as a horror that has been beloved by many people. And when I've mentioned this book has been on my list, I've had a lot of messages from people going, that book was absolutely one of their favorite, life-changing for them. It's Our Wives Under the Sea. I listened to it. I read it. I think this is a very good book. For me personally, it wasn't a smash out of the park. This was a book that I know is good. I still had notes on it. And it's a little bit of a what the fuck book as well. Our Wives Under the Sea is the story of two women who are in a relationship and the different perspectives of it. You have Leah, who is part of a deep sea diving mission in a boat, not just diving, that sounds weird. But she is part of an organization that has gone on these deep sea dives, and she will be away for months at a time. Leah is married to Miri, and we get the perspectives of both Miri and Leah through this book, as we understand that the last mission that Leah went on to the deep sea went catastrophically wrong, and they were lost under the water for months on end. Leah did make it back to land. She has made it back to Miri, but Miri finds her wife inexplicably changed and their relationship changed. So we have Miri's story as she is trying to figure out what is wrong with her wife, trying to support her often thinking back as well to what their relationship had been at the start before she went on this last mission. And we also have the story of Leah and what happened in the mission, what happened under the water as their ship lost power and slowly started sinking down, down, down into the darkness, and what the crew went through, what they experienced, and what may have been going on outside of the ship. This is a book that is classed as a horror because there are some uncanny, strange moments in it and a very, very strange thread that is running all the way through it. And it's also a very interesting piece of literary fiction about a relationship, about the loss of someone when they're still there. Many people mention Our Wives Under the Sea as a great example of grief horror or a novel about grief, and people feel very affected by how powerful the story is at the center of it, of what Miri has to go through when she feels that her wife may have been lost at sea and no one knows what happened during their expedition. But then when she returns, the fact that she is inexplicably altered. She seems to be slipping away. She's doing very strange things. And not only is she worried about her mental state and her physical state, she's also losing her wife. And she's losing the love of her life, and she's losing that relationship. And that is played out through the story. And it builds to a conclusion that I'm not going to mention. It's very interesting. And you do get hints of what happened under the sea. And yes, there are supernatural nods there. Is it real? Is it not? I went really specific on ratings this month, and Our Wives Under the Sea ended up being, this seems harsh, a 3.75 out of 5 for me. I was kind of like, is it a 4-star? Because this is a very good book. I think it is a very good book in some respects. I think bits of it were not for me in the way that it was written. I think that the storyline and the messaging behind it was strong. I liked the horror elements because they're very understated of what happened with Leah, what happened down below. That's nicely played out, and there's a nice sense of tension and sort of what's wrestling with the different crew members down there, what people confronted, what people went through. I like the slow tension of that. I also liked through the book the observations of Miri about how you can look fondly back in a relationship and the things that you love about a person and the quirks and things that you so enjoy about someone, but how those can suddenly turn into something that's really grating and really difficult. And when that person starts to change and it's not cute anymore, it becomes annoying. That, I think those bits were really well done. I think that the book was a little bit too focused on its own weirdness, because it has got WTF moments in it. And times in the book I felt it was getting a little bit pretentious in its writing. It was getting a little bit too swollen with trying to find various metaphors and meaning when the story was good enough as it was. And it's not a particularly long book, but the further that this sort of floats on, that you float through this story, you know, the metaphor for the sea and for the water and everything, it can become a little bit frustrating, I think, when there's a lot of moments of poignancy, maybe one too many. I didn't particularly find it to be a devastating, for me, you know, affecting book about grief. I liked that it was dealing with the loss of a relationship and how you grieve for someone, but I wasn't sort of blown away and moved. A lot of people saying it is one of the greatest books that they've ever read, and if you feel that way, you're absolutely right. If you loved it, I personally liked it a lot, and I think there is a lot to like about it. Just had moments where it was trying too hard, possibly. Now we come on to the holiday reads. The holiday reads. I went away for 10 days in August to beautiful Greece. Lovely Greece. I've got some footage of that. May chuck it out in a vlog if you all want to see some lovely beaches and me just absolutely mainlining Euros. Then buckle in, and that'll be a watch for for you guys. But knowing that I had a blissful, relaxing holiday coming up with my husband, I loaded up my Kindle with a bunch of ARCs, advanced reader copies of books, and I worked my way through them. Also, take a moment to acknowledge my new Kindle cover. I've only got the 2 stickers on there. I have my little pumpkin, and as I got with this little moon there. I kind of went for the leathery look on my Kindle. I'm not married to it. Not married to it at the moment. It needs more stickers, I feel. Or it needs a really weird cover. Any recommendations of really great Kindle covers out there, just let me know. I like one with a flap because I batter stuff over people's heads. The first book I dove into holiday, I thought I need a good, chilling thriller, horror thing, and the book that I got approved for was my first book by Darcy Coates. Darcy Coates, who is known for writing many a ghost story and gothic stories, and loads of people have recommended it. But this time, she has delved into the world of slightly thriller, slasher, maybe spooky vibes as well, in How Bad Things Can Get. This book came out on the 26th of August. As I said, my first book by this author, and I really enjoyed this ride. It wasn't without its notes. There was a huge amount going on in this book, but yeah, it's wild. There's various narrative threads going on in How Bad Things Can Get, so I'll try and summarize it. But predominantly, it's the story of a woman, Ruth, who in her youth, in her childhood, we know from the start, she has escaped a cult. Immediately, yes. I'm not saying cults are good, I'm saying I love reading about them. She has escaped a cult, she has hidden her identity for years and years and years. It was a very famous case. But she and some friends and her new boyfriend have been invited to this huge event on a mysterious, beautiful desert island. This event is being held by an online influencer, and he's invited a lot of online influencers and members of the public as well. This influencer is known for running games on YouTube and is very famous, so he has set up this luxury, beautiful resort. Think Fire Island, but not chaos yet. He's going to get a chance to play games and win big money and big prizes, and they've got this huge team of staff on there, and people will live a very nice, luxurious influencer lifestyle. But what's really going on the island? Because soon people start to go missing and bloody things start happening, and Ruth starts to wonder, do people know who she is? And are there links to old stories of different cults on this island? And is this all just a terrible coincidence, or has someone planned something for her? Yes, this book is about cults. It refers to the cult that Ruth was involved in. There's nods to cults of witchcraft and cool stories like that. You've also got this Fire Island meets Squid Games kind of setup with these crazy, quite risky games that people are having to play, and we're taken through those. We also have this thriller of people going missing. People start going missing on the island, and yes, some pretty gruesome, slashery deaths are occurring. People and figures coming out of the woods and really weird weapons, and the mystery of what's actually happening behind the scenes. Why is Ruth there on the island? Why did she agree to go to the island in the first place? I shouldn't tug at that thread. It's a slasher, it's a thriller, she shouldn't have gone in the first place, but why did she go, and who was invited them there? The book is around 400 pages. I think it probably could have been trimmed down a little bit because there is a huge amount going on. But overall, it was great fun. It was, again, what I was expecting from a good slasher book that does pile on lots of other tropes and references with the cults, with this kind of, Squid Games kind of vibe. It's not exactly Squid Games, don't worry, but it's referencing that kind of feeling. So Darcy Coates seems to have packed a huge amount into the book. Maybe 1 or 2 things too many, but it's a thrilling ride as you go along with it. And it does make me want to go and read more by this author. I have not delved into any of their supernatural works or the gothic works at all. But this, if you want that kind of crazy island set slasher thriller, absolutely eat up How Bad Things Can Get. It is good fun. I would like T. Kingfisher to write a slasher at some point, because the 2 slashers I've mentioned in this reviews I really loved, and the characters are pretty strong in them. But slashers, you often have the problem with the FMC, obviously the final girl in it. She takes herself too seriously. She needs to be funnier. There needs to be more humor. There needs to be more laughs, as you would get in a slasher film. That's still a little trap that people fall down. Josh Winning does a good job of it in his books. But yeah, T. Kingfisher, maybe write a slasher. Maybe that'll be next summer. This is your friendly reminder to please like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. I would love to keep bringing you more recommendations of spooky books and spooky films, and I'd love to hear from you about the spooky stuff that you'd like to see in your life generally. Let's have a chat in the comments. I don't mind. The next arc on my list was one I was very excited about, but I also was going into it with a sense of trepidation. It is Rainforest by Michelle Paver. Now, Rainforest isn't out until the 9th of October, but I was very keen to read this book because Michelle Paver is the author of one of my favourite, scariest books of all time. She wrote Dark Matter. Now, I've mentioned Dark Matter many, many times over, and I think it's an absolutely brilliant ghost story. My love for Dark Matter led me to read other books by Michelle Paver, namely Thin Air and also Wakenhurst, and I found those two books disappointing. And it's a rare case where I found an author where I absolutely loved one book and really didn't like the others because I just didn't think that they worked. So I've had my fingers crossed for Rainforest. This is a story set in the jungle in South America in the 1970s. It's the story of our protagonist, Simon, who is an expert on insects. I should have looked up the actual name for what he is. But he has joined this expedition to the jungle. He is an Englishman, and we know from the start of the book that he is running from something, that he seems to have lost someone in his life, and he carries terrible guilt about it. As he goes to the jungle, he meets the other people who are in charge of this trek out to the jungle and all the different explorations and all the different studies that they're doing out there. And we have Simon coming into this mix, retelling the story of what's happened to him in his past, namely his falling in love with a beautiful young woman, a woman who was much younger than him, that very clearly turned into stalking. We have a lot of men together in the jungle talking and trying to understand in their very British colonial, still lingering colonial ways about what it is that the natives really should be telling them and what they understand about the local area and the local customs without them really seeking proper information from the local people. But this is a jungle that is full of ghosts, that is full of strange rituals. There are places in the jungle you shouldn't go, not because you should fear for your life from a mosquito bite or a potential jaguar in the greenery, but also about what could be waiting for you amongst the trees and what reckoning will come to you when you confront your own demons. This book started so well, and I was really enjoying the setup of it. I really liked the fact that we had a quite unlikable central character in Simon. The story is told by journal entries by Simon. We get his prejudices in there, his arrogance, his assumption that he knows best, his frailty and his vulnerability. And we also see his perspective of what he believes happened with this young woman. And really in those early passages, there's a great sense of tension and really gut-wrenching moments where you can see the reality of what he didn't, of what was so wrong with the things that he did, that he thinks is perfectly innocent, and his naivety, even though he's a man in his 40s, of all the things that went wrong. The story sets up that Simon is there to not only study different insects, he's really interested in praying mantis, but he is also seeking redemption, and he is fascinated by the folklore, by the mysticism of the area. Michelle Paver created a fictional indigenous population for this book. They are not real, she explains in the afterword of her book, but it's inspired by different races, different cultures, different people from across the centuries. With that set up, I ended up being disappointed with this book. I think we carried on with this journey of Simon as he ends up sort of going further into the jungle and things happen. And again, I won't give away too much about the story and his sort of path for redemption. And it was disappointing in the end because Simon was set up as an unlikable character who had done things wrong. And really all the men on this trip, they've all got faults with them. And there's a lot that you don't like about them at all. And I ended up sort of not being convinced that I wanted to carry on Simon's journey, that I wanted to go with him. Things happened to him. It didn't really feel like he got the proper redemption, the proper comeuppance in the end. The book has good atmosphere. You really do feel the humidity and the oppression of the jungle, the fear of the insects and things all around you. You know, the scene setting was very good through the book, but ultimately I just didn't care about Simon. I didn't really care to be on the journey with him or what he would learn from the end of it. I would rather I would rather so many more people in that book suffered. Honestly, I think it would have made for a better story. And that's not giving away the ending and stuff, because there are a lot of dark things that happen in this book. Yeah, it's a difficult one to rate because I didn't love the book. I don't think it's a bad book. I just didn't really love it. And it's not just because I'm waiting for her to reach the heady heights that were Dark Matter. Dark Matter will still continue to be one of my favorite ghost stories of all time. Yeah, it was disappointing and at points a little bit uncomfortable. There we are. Unfortunately, Rainforest was kind of mid for me and possibly the lowest rating that I had. Also, seeing as we've gone down the slope a little bit, it's worth me mentioning the one DNF I had this month. And it's annoying. I may return to it, but it's a book that I've hyped up loads. I started Slashed Beauties. This book, I loved the premise of it. I've said it several times. This is the story of different split timelines, but of some anatomical Venuses, waxwork figures, that apparently come alive at night and start murdering people. This was such a strong premise. I loved that idea. I started reading the advanced copy of it and I did not like the writing style. I really didn't like the way it was written. It's a personal peeve and I don't feel right in giving it a rating because I did not continue further into this book. I got a very, very quick impression of how I felt about that book, and it did not change for several chapters. And I went, you know what, I'm going to put this down. I'm going to put this down, and I will come back to it later. And I would like to see how the story progressed, because it was an interesting story. All I found it very cliched, very exposition-y, not great in its execution. However, that is not a rating from me. That's just why I DNF'd it for now. Maybe a book that you'd be interested in diving into, and if anyone else has read it and said, Sinead, for God's sake, carry on. It's not out for a little while. Let's see. Let's see. So after dipping down the slide, the roller coaster went right back up the hill, and I read the latest book by Rachel Harrison, Play Nice. Rachel Harrison, one of my favourite horror writers, author by author for me, and I've been very fortunate in the last couple of books of hers to receive an advance copy so I can bring you my verdict. Play Nice comes out on the 9th of September, so again, it may be out by the time you watch this video. In the past, Rachel Harrison has tackled vampires, she's tackled werewolves, she's tackled cults and devil worshippers, she's tackled zombie things that come back from the dead, but this time she's doing the haunted house genre, and it was a smash. In Play Nice, we have our protagonist Cleo, who is a fashion influencer. She lives a very glamorous, fun, rock and roll lifestyle. She is the youngest of 3 sisters, and she finds out that her mother, who she has been estranged from, the whole family have been estranged from for several years, has passed away. And with her death, the 3 sisters have inherited their old family home. A home that the mother insisted was haunted. She even wrote a book about it. Cleo is close with her 2 sisters, and she has a good relationship with her father, who divorced the mother many years ago, and that was a source of a lot of strain for the family when they were children. Cleo decides that she is going to return to the family home and do it as a fixer-upper. She can Instagram that, she can sell that to all of her followers, great. But when she goes back to the old house, she senses, oh no, there really is something wrong here. Her mother, who always insisted there was a demon in the house, wrote this book that the sisters all pledged that they would never read. The father asked them, don't read it, it's going to be too traumatizing. Cleo starts to think, was my mother telling the truth? So we have this story of her finding out what happened in the household, and she starts to finally read the book that her mother wrote about this haunting and getting to the bottom of what really happened. Rachel Harrison writes very fun, slightly punky, I always describe it as pink horror. It's female-centric horror, but it's got a wry sense of humour. It has got a lot of pop culture references to it. It doesn't take itself too seriously while also having some really good emotional gut punches in there as well. I think Play Nice is one of her best books of recent times. This book gives us a good, solid haunted house story. We've got a very good spectral being in the house, a presence, really nice hints at hauntings, really, really quite scary images throughout. You have attempts at exorcism, you have signs that are coming through on the walls and on bits of paper, but there's also a really good story at its heart, and maybe it resonated with me in particular, and I think it will resonate with certain people, about a family, a dysfunctional family, a family that's had their problems, and looking back at what your parents experienced with an adult's eye. I really like the way that was done in this book, because you get the sense from Cleo, from the sisters, who are close, but they all are very determined about, you know, their mother was not well. She did terrible things when they were younger. She was a destructive presence. The father fought for custody of the children and gave them his narrative of what was wrong with the mother. And I think, maybe a few people will relate that you can look back and at the, troubled times in your childhood, you have this impression of what your parents were doing, and maybe one is the villain and one is the hero. And then when you get older and you have that adult's perspective and having lived a few years, you go, actually, maybe that wasn't what was happening. Maybe the mother in this case wasn't crazy. Maybe she was experiencing a lot of stress, a lot of heartbreak. And what did that manifest into? And was she telling the truth? Was she really being a monster? Was she the demon of the household, or was something else going on? And were there other secrets not being shared with the family? Rachel Harrison delivers all of this in still quite a light-hearted way. It doesn't ever feel too heavy, but it still does have that emotional punch when you need it. And I really enjoyed that in the book. And yeah, I could relate a little bit, without going into sort of trauma territory here. Really, really, it's not. But it is that perspective of sort of when you look back in your older years and go, you change your perspective of what your parents must have gone through when they were going through stress. It's so simple to see it in one hand as a child, and then when you're older to sort of go, maybe it wasn't that clear cut. Maybe I didn't really see everything. And I think she does this so well in Play Nice. It is a fun horror book. It is scary and it is sad in parts, and it is not deep diving into trauma and really plumbing the emotional and psychological depths of it. So whereas other books, I think like September House, which I've read, really took a still fun but darker twist and a deeper dive into ideas of trauma and family. Play Nice is still incredibly entertaining and really a rewarding read. I really enjoyed my time with it. One of the books where actually a bit more would have been great, whereas there were several books this month where I would have been, yeah, knock it down a little bit. If you are a Rachel Harrison fan, I think you will really enjoy Play Nice. If you are new to Rachel Harrison, this is a great, good fun, haunted house story with some good emotional moments in it. I really loved it. And then rattling towards the end of August, I had 2 books to finish, and another one was a biggie that I had heard about so much. This was A Certain Hunger. I've got the UK cover of this, though I really prefer the American cover, so I'm going to put that on screen now. I don't know which side I put it on. Just do that. A Certain Hunger shows up on a lot of lists of literary horror and of female rage. It kind of gets lumped in with that. I have thoughts on that. But this is the story of a female, successful, gorgeous, stylish, cannibalistic serial killer. She, Dorothy, our protagonist, is telling her story from jail as she muses on the fact that she has been captured and convicted for killing her most recent lover and eating part of him. And we learn Dorothy's story as she tells it from her past, the various jobs she's had as a successful food critic and food writer, and also the many men that she has slept with and enjoyed various dalliances with, and also the men that she's ended up killing and eating bits of, and where that compulsion came from and where it led her to. This book came out a couple of years ago. I'm sure this comparison has been made, and I did note that the author paid homage to Bret Easton Ellis in her afterword. This is if Patrick Bateman had a girlfriend. This book owes a huge amount to American Psycho. At its best, this is a brutal, indulgent, gory, grotesque exploration of excess, of psychopathy completely. Dorothy, cool, calm, collected, absolutely zero feeling. Though this book was also bloated from its overindulgence. It is a good book, but it needed some of the fat trimming from it. There will be many more food puns that I could throw out at you for this. I liked this book overall, though I do think it is overwritten. I think it has really good moments in it. I loved the idea of the central story, those moments where Dorothy is sort of profiling the different lovers that she's had and the jobs that she's had as a food critic. We get that sense of that almost, the way American Psycho celebrated yuppieism in the 80s. We've got Dorothy detailing, when she became a writer, what it was like writing on staff in the 80s and the 90s for these really cool magazines. If you were around at the time, you'll get those references. The change in where you get food critics and publications onto online blogs and her becoming a writer. And this is a world of excess. This book is not grounded in reality for so many reasons. Everyone in it is privileged. It is a world of money, of everyone in it is impossibly successful. The world that Dorothy moves in is just, yes, this world of the rich and famous, of being able to have whatever you want, indulging in, of artists, of impossibly successful, incredibly creative, gorgeous people. It is juxtaposed with her writing this from jail and making the comparisons that now she's in prison, she doesn't have any access to any of these wonderful meals and this wonderful lifestyle. Dorothy writes in these rambling threads about food, about sex, is very explicit in her details about sex and how you consume, and her life and society around it. I've thought for a long time about whether the book was intentionally trying to be overindulgent because of the nature of the story. We are talking about a serial killer who is obsessed with food, with the finest food imaginable, who has made their career critiquing the best restaurants, the best meals, shapes their life around these meals and excess in every sense of the word, and including all of their friends and the people around them. But if the book was trying to do that, was trying to be overindulgent in its writing style as some sort of commentary about Dorothy herself, I don't think it landed. I ended up feeling frustrated by passages that seemed to be wandering with no addition to the story, with no meaning, with no great poignancy or reference. I did get the impression all the way through that this was really trying to be a successor or a companion to American Psycho. And American Psycho was a moment in time. You know, that book, the way it is written, it's not for everyone, but it is an incredibly accomplished piece of work, even if you hate it. This book, it felt like it was trying to achieve that, and I just don't think that those bits landed. Would I recommend A Certain Hunger? You'll either love it or you'll hate it. I mean, I was in the middle, actually, weirdly, so I don't know why I'm saying that. I think if you start reading it and you don't mind that style and you get a chapter into it, you'll probably want to carry on for the ride. And there will be bits I think you will feel are a little bit bloated, but no, actually, you know, there's some good grotesque moments in there and an interesting story underneath it. Some people will open the book and they will read certain passages and go, nope, absolutely not, because it is grotesque in many ways. And the third book was my final book of August, Heatwave. Heatwave is a tiny novella, 100 pages or so. It was originally written in French. It has been translated. It is the story of Leo, a 17-year-old boy who is on holiday with his family at this huge campsite by the sea in the middle of a heatwave. At the start of the book, Leo witnesses the seemingly accidental death of another teenager at the campsite, a boy called Oliver, who has become tangled up in the swing set and strangles himself and takes the strange decision to move his body and bury it. That is the opening of the book. And then the rest of the story takes place over the course of the next day and into the next night before he and his family go home, and him moving through the campsite with the knowledge of what he's done on his shoulders, the interactions he has with the teenagers that he's made friends with there, this backdrop of oppressive heat, but also all the teenagers getting to the end of their holiday, and many of them are desperate to hook up with someone. You have boys and girls who are looking for a meaningful connection. They have spent all summer trying to lose their virginities or to find someone to do something with or to. And you see Leo talking to these people and his own sort of desires while he's expressing this sort of apathy in general towards the world, but feelings are starting to emerge. Also him wrestling with what he has done with Oliver. It is a strange heat haze like story that you wander through, and at the end of it you kind of go, okay, I think that was good. Very well written. I feel like I'm doing a lot of comparisons with existing books for my reviews this month because a lot of them are sort of screaming that with a siren. This book, huge homage to L'Étranger, The Outsider by Albert Camus. It's a book I love, absolutely love. This is very much in the same style. It's like if The Outsider was set at the beach, at a holiday camp. Because you have Leo as this central character, this sort of existentialism, this apathy that he has as he's wandering through life, wondering how to interact. Even the language that he uses, this is very reminiscent of the protagonist of The Outsider. The book achieves this oppressive heat of the summer very well, and it is a really good book in terms of showing the frustration of adolescence without it being over the top and overly cliched. I did really like the way it drew the teenagers and that confusion and frustration that they have of, we're supposed to be adults, we're supposed to be grown-ups now, we're nearly adults at least, and that need for connection, for physical touch, all the pressure that is on different groups, different genders to connect with people, and what that looks like and what that really feels like. So it sort of feels like this dreamy coming of age, dark coming of age-ish story in the middle of the summer over the course of pretty much one day on the beach. Is the central story strong enough. It sort of has this very shocking opening and then it ends in a particular way. You'll have to read it. I read it in an afternoon. I just read it in a couple of hours. And I liked the way it was written. I wasn't sure what really happened at the end of that. I was quite, you walk away going, okay. If you're going to read this, I would say read L'Étranger as well, the translation of it, The Outsider, The Stranger, by Albert Camus. It'd be interesting to compare the two of them. If you're a fan of that book, or if you'd read it and you'd loved it, do read Heatwave and see what you think. Those are the 9 books that I read and completed in August. 1 DNF, maybe I'll come back to it. It was a good month overall. I did feel quite weird at the end that I'd read 3 books that I guess would be classed as literary fiction that I just was kind of, okay, about, but think they're good books. But do I recommend them? I guess so, yes, maybe. But some I absolutely would recommend that you get stuck into if you can. Some of these books, most of these books are out now. By the time this video comes out, it'll be out in a couple of days' time. 1 or 2 that you've got to wait a bit longer for. But the main thing that we all have to focus on is spooky season is upon us. We are now in September, so I am compiling my list of the top reads that I need to get through for autumn, for September, in preparation of October, so I can give you those lists of cozy books that you can enjoy in the fall, really Halloween focused books to get ready for October, anything that's spooky, cozy, really scary, or anything that's got an autumnal feel. It's quite the task that I have on my hand. Also, I've got a load of new books behind me that I got for my birthday that all need to be read, and there's some absolute cracking ghost stories, horror stories in there, spooky stuff, snuggly stuff, weird stuff. It's all happening. It's all happening. Do check back with me very soon because I've got a lot of book recommendations coming up for you for this season, and I'll also be doing more of my compilation videos of different types of books that you can enjoy any time of the year. Let me know in the comments the books that you enjoyed reading in August, any corkers in there that should be on my list, and what you're most looking forward to for the autumn. Stay spooky, bye-bye. Is it unconscionably bright in here? Do I need to turn that down? I just lowered the light. It felt really bright in here. I mean, I may be glowing, but it may look really weird on camera. I don't know. Breathe in, breathe out. La 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 la. Blah. Tea. Tea will help. Tea will help. That was a very loud slurp, I'm sorry. Your lemon nails? These are cat's eye nails. You can't see this, but they glitter and they glow. Definitely want to put onto your list as you eke towards the colder months. Eke towards the colder months? It's eke out this summer, and then you edge towards the sun. No, I'm not saying words right. Oh, fucking my hair is... I'm also where my hair will move in this. Little bits will just pop up. Because why not? Why does my hair move when I make videos? It's like little bits decide to pop up during the filming. Like this is like a supporting cast in here. I know you guys don't notice it. I notice it in editing, and it troubles me.